Welcome to all of you. It's so good to see many of you here for our AMU lecture. For those of you who have forgotten what AMU stands for, it stands for American Marianist Universities. And this, you'll hear more about this when President Mingler gets up here to give his little introduction. I'm going to start with a prayer, and so I ask you to please pause and to know that we are in the house of God, and that God is with us, guiding us as we begin this special day. Loving God, we gather here in your house before the image of our blessed founder, William Joseph Shamnight. We ask Shamnight a few things as we begin this day. To teach us the words that speak to our times as those words spoke during his time. Words simple and wise, words to stir both mind and heart, words to bring light to our lives and attract others to the gifts you have given us, words to rally ourselves and those to whom we speak to the cause of justice, peace, reconciliation, and the integrity of creation. Help us also to be a sign of hope in our world, a spectacle to the nations, as we live together with others in this Marianist family, a people of saints who present Christ in every look and gesture, missionaries of Mary, whose actions are both bold and watchful, ready to go where we need to go, do whatever we are called for the sake of the gospel to do. Ground us in your apostolic imagination to see the richness and diversity and the face of Christ in every person, to treasure our international character and all the generations, classes, and races that compromise our people, to venture beyond the closed circles of the experience, to be open to new and inventive ways, to picture a church with a Marian face, to believe all things possible with our God of unbounding grace and love. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Fire Marshal would ask that all of you standing against the wall please move forward to a chair. Okay, so please find a seat so that we begin. And I'd like to introduce our President, Thomas Mengler.
Thank you, Father Rudy. In the run of show, which I'm holding in my hand, it says my single job is to welcome. So welcome to you all. Welcome particularly to our honored and distinguished speaker, Dr. Michael Galligan-Stierle. And I'm going to go a little bit beyond my script here. Welcome back to Dr. Michael Galligan-Stierle, who, as you know, is a graduate of ours, graduate of St. Mary's University. As Father Rudy mentioned, this lecture series is sponsored by the Association of Marianist Universities, the three universities we know and love, St. Mary's, Dayton, and Chaminade. It's part of an ongoing effort to continue our formation as a community, faculty, staff, and students. So thank you all for coming. Thank you especially, Michael, and we look forward to your remarks.
Dr. Michael Galligan-Stierle has been engaged in national and international Catholic higher education issues for the past 12 years, currently as President and CEO of the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities, 4 years as ACCU's Vice President, and 6 years as the Assistant Secretary at the Conference of Bishops for Catholic Higher Education and Campus Ministry for the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops. Before arriving in Washington, D.C., Michael worked for 30 years in various higher educational settings and ministerial settings as campus minister, diocesan director, professor of theology, and a graduate ministry interim director. Michael also has published books, one entitled Gospel on Campus, that is viewed as the standard for Catholic campus ministry throughout the United States. His 2005 text, Promising Practices, Collaboration Among Catholic Bishops and University Presidents, highlights tried and true ways bishops, diocesan agencies, and Catholic colleges and universities collaborate. In February of 2009, Michael's article, Millennials in Ministry in College Campuses, was published in the New Theology Review. He is currently editing a book for Catholic mission officers, slated to be published in January of 2014. Michael, as I said at the beginning, holds a doctorate in sacred scripture, a master's in psychology, and a master's in theology. He's been married for 34 years. They are proud parents of 2 biological and 2 adopted children. They are emerging adults. Some are already adults in their years. Michael also is a grandparent with 3 grandchildren. Michael is no stranger to St. Mary's University. He attended St. Mary's, and so we give him a warm welcome back home.
Thank you very much. In 1967, I sat where you are as a student, those that are students in here, and I was a student. And I prayed in this chapel as a student. I lived in Treadaway, and it was some of the most glorious years of my life. And the teachers and the experience I had of being with the Marianist and the lay faculty and student affairs members of this community helped to shape my thinking to this day. And as I look around the crowd, I see additional friends that I've made along the way. So it's very, very nice to be back on campus. Thank you for the opportunity. Today I want to talk about the Marianist contribution to Catholic higher education. And I have some modest goals today. Students, pay attention. 2, you need to walk out with 2 ideas to write or to talk about or something. Faculty, staff, 2 ideas. My thought is if you go out with 6, you've got too much, you can't implement any of them. So if you get 1, if I come up with 1 good idea in the next 55 minutes, I'm good to go, okay? So what I want to do in the first half is I want to talk about when I use the phrase Catholic higher education, what am I talking about? And I'm going to use a text called Ex Corde Ecclesiae to unfold that, Catholic higher education. Then I'm going to ask you to pick something I said in the first 25 minutes that you found was helpful. And I'm going to ask you to stand up and stretch and talk to the person next to you. So in the first 20 minutes, you got to come up with something, okay? Then I'm going to go into the second part. I'm going to talk about, now that we have the landscape for Catholic higher education, what's the Marianist contribution to Catholic higher education? And then we're going to end with some question and answers. If I have time, I'm going to ask you to do a little evaluation when I put something up on the screen from your worldview, and I'm going to ask you to rate St. Mary's University on 6 concepts. Here we go. Catholic higher education. This part is based on a document called On Catholic Universities by John Paul II, 1985. What many people fail to realize in our last 2 popes is that we've had 2 popes that completely believe in Catholic higher education and have been engaged in Catholic higher education more than most popes in the last 500 years. Because we're immersed in it, we can't see it. John Paul II's idea of a good time is going out with students on a camping trip, sitting around a campfire, and talking about what's the most important thing in life. When he became Pope, he said, this is so good, let's have World Youth Day and have everybody come together. Benedict's good idea of a fun time vacation is he packs up 3 boxes of books, sends it to his summer residence, which he reads. He invites all of his doctoral students back for a week to talk about what is theology in the academy, what is the culture, how can we speak to the culture. So in 2 popes, we've had somebody from the student affairs side, we've had somebody from the faculty side. But sometimes we miss it because we're right living in the mix of that reality. So John Paul II's idea in writing this document, because since University of Paris, when Catholic universities began, there was no document, you've heard me correctly, there was no document that looked at the world for the Catholic Church and said, what is Catholic higher education? So John Paul II said, let's see if we can get a common denominator. And that's what I want to tell you in the common denominator. When he talks about a common denominator for Catholic higher education, he's talking about common denominator in 2 ways. Head, mind, thoughts, and heart, affect. So he wants to say, how does a Catholic experience in higher education affect the mind and affect the heart? These documents, ex corde ecclesiae, from the heart of the church, that's what it means, ex corde ecclesiae, from the heart of the church, was then given to all the countries in the world and said, put together how this document fits in your culture and your reality. And so 2001, in the United States, the bishops and the presidents, our association, Catholic College and Universities, worked hard to put together a document on how to do ex corde ecclesiae in the United States. And those two documents sort of frame how we try to proceed in this country. So in the first part of the document, it says there are 4 common characteristics when you look across the world. And this is the language they use. There's a lot of words there. Luckily, this is being taped. And secondly, I have to cover this first half in 20 minutes, so get what you can. Because I think that's a lot of words and it's too much. So I'm going to boil it down for you into Michael's words, but I did show you the words from the text, okay? This is what I think it's saying. Every institution across the world tries to do 4 things. Inspire people to live values. Second, connect knowledge and research, that's the culture, with the thinking of a Catholic worldview. Third, in the culture, live what it means faithfully. What does it mean to live gospel values in the culture? That should be happening at a university campus. So note here, we're not just talking thinking, we're talking about being engaged in your life. There's an affect dimension to what John Paul II is talking about. And lastly, it's really not about Catholic at all. That is Catholic big C. It's all about Catholic small c. That is, we are called to help anyone in the world and join with anyone in the world of any faith or no faith to join with us to advance the common good. That's my words. That's John Paul II's words. That's what Catholic universities are grounded in. So we're not to be an enclave of Catholic separatism or uniqueness as in different and radically special, but we're supposed to find as many partners as we can to make this world better. And that's what Catholic universities should be good at. So I'm going to go over those 4 points again in case you missed them and fold them out a little bit. So number 1, that means we should be hospitable. We should be inclusive. And students, when they leave here, should be better at living the good life. You should be better at the good life when you leave here. What is good life? What does that look like to you? Are you finding mentors in your faculty? Are you finding mentors in your RAs, in your student affairs and campus ministry? They're here. They have to be sought out. That's what a Catholic university, and that should somehow reach up and inspire us to make us hope-filled. We should also be connecting thoughts with academics that are going to lead to jobs and careers and a certain way of living. So there should be a connection to a profession and our belief system. So there should be some ethics to business. to scientific discovery. And we should be figuring out, how does reason help our faith, and how does faith help our reason? Because without either one of those, we have a lopsided diagram and not a Catholic university. Again, John Paul II's words, not mine. And lastly, while we can say as believers that we have come in contact with the truth in God and in Jesus, and that we know that living reality of God in our life, we never ever understand that mystery deeply. And so we have more to learn. So we have to have open arms to the academy and say, what is truth? Let's search after it. Let's see where the Spirit is leading us. Let's see what else is out there that we can't see. The world isn't flat, folks. Slavery isn't here anymore. Most guys don't have multiple wives. In other words, if you look in the scriptures and you look at the history of faith, those things were there. But life and the Spirit led us to new places. And so where's the Spirit leading us today? That's what John Paul's saying. A Catholic university needs to be looking at the culture, looking at the academy, and saying, where are we going today? Third, we do a lot of things in life. We sort of walk through life sometimes without thinking. A Catholic university should say to you, stop. Put the cell phone down, put that book down for a minute, and let's reflect. What is going on? Who are the people that are making a difference in your life? What are the values you're learning? To do interior work is essential for the academy and a Catholic university. Next, we should be able, when you, a student, walk across the stage, should have in your heart and in your mind some basic principles about Catholic justice or social teaching. What do we mean when we say solidarity? What do we mean when we say communio? What do we mean when we say justice? Those are critical words that are built into a Catholic university. And they're connected to all people of goodwill. And so that's where we join together, whether you're a believer or not in the faculty or student affairs or a student. It's how do we find the common good to make this world a better place? And lastly, at a university, you should find faithful Catholics. You ought to find some creative Catholics. You got to find both, okay? Because we need to be looking at where's the Spirit taking this church? Where's the Spirit to lead us? What's the greatest and the newest things in the culture that we should be embracing that can make the quality of life better for people that we didn't see 20 years ago? That's what part 3 of this introduction in John Paul's thinking is about a Catholic university. And lastly, we are called to go into the world to make a difference for everyone. That is, we're about searching for the transcendence, a transcendent living that pulls us outside of ourselves to something more. Let me tell you the universe of higher education. Here it is. 4,200 colleges that exist in the United States right now. 4,200. 21 million students. How many are Catholic? 220 Catholic colleges. 4,200? 200 Catholic colleges. 21 million? How many Catholics are in college right now? 7 million. How many Catholics are in Catholic colleges? 500,000. And another 250 to 300,000 folks that are not Catholic but are joining with us in Catholic universities. Okay, now that's 750,000, 800,000 students that are in Catholic universities at the moment, whether they're a believer or not a believer, whether they're a deeply devout Catholic or not. This university and every Catholic university is called to advance them somehow on the search to the transcendent and to help them see what the good things are about the Catholic faith that could help them on that walk. Those things go together. Now here's an interesting statistic. UCLA did a study of those 21 million students. You know what they found? 80+% want to grow spiritually during the college years. 80+% of those 21 million students want to grow spiritually. They didn't want to grow Catholic. They just want to be more in touch with the transcendent. Now, do you know how many faculty are willing to engage students in that out of those 4,200 campuses? 5%. 85% of the students sitting in class are interested in growing spiritually. 5% of the faculty are interested in helping them. So what are the statistics within Catholic colleges? 750,000 students, more than 65% of the Catholic faculty, staff at Catholic colleges are willing to assist students in the search for the holy. 5%, 65%. What makes us distinctive? If nothing else from this talk, if you don't get that that makes us distinctive, that's a pretty significant item. So we want to help students on their walk. John Paul II says there's two things, and I particularly now turn my attention to the faculty and staff that are in the room. You'll hear a phrase often in Catholic higher education circles that say, we're about Catholic mission and identity, or we're about joining in the mission, or we're about advancing identity and mission. I'm going to ask you to try to be more precise about your language because you're using it incorrectly. There are two pieces. One is identity and one is mission. And they're not the same. They're not even close to the same. Identity is who you are, and that is how are you the same with all the other universities that are Catholic. And mission is how you go about doing what you do, which is incredibly unique and not like all the other universities and shouldn't be. It's the unique way you advance what you do. Those are very different things. So John Paul II pulls those apart in this document, and I'll note 4 things that he brings forward. That is, in the identity of a Catholic university, first, this is what all Catholic universities, that is, a university is a Catholic university, the university is the noun, Catholic is the adjective. So what's the centerpiece? University. What's the identifying item that gives it a flavor? Catholic. Catholic university. Now, it has to be both and, not either or. It's not a university, it's not Catholic, so it's Catholic university. They go together. As he says, it's a community of scholars after looking for human knowledge and an academic university vitally present that has a Catholic flavor. Okay? Second, a Catholic university should seek truth without reserve. That is, it's going to talk about the truth as we know it in God and in Jesus, but it also wants to go after that which we don't know yet. As St. Thomas says, go after truth wherever it leads you. Next, the people who work at the university should somehow be authentic people. Because if you're not, students can see right through it. So don't fake whatever belief system you are trying to fake or pretend. Be who you are and advance the common good with the people that are here. Advance the common good. For those that are Catholic, what you can embrace, embrace deeply. And out of that, the university should grow in a substantive way. So in this university, we should find authentic, living Christian people who are living their lifestyle in a substantive way, making a difference in the world. And you ought to be able to see that by looking at it. As Benedict said when he came to Washington, D.C., that's where I happen to live and work, he said, people of hope live differently. People of hope live differently. So can you see a difference in some of the people you interact with? You should be able to. And lastly, the ideals that we're called to by reaching for the common good and the ideals in the Catholic worldview should inform the activities that take place at the university. So there should be some congruence with the way we believe and see the world, with what we're doing and what student activities and teaching that's taking place at the university. That's the identity side. Let's look at the mission side. On the mission side, we should serve society and the church. That is, we should advance some ways of being helpful. So how are you helping the community around here? How are you helping the Southwest, the area? How are you helping the churches around here? How are you helping the people that are in need around here? That's what a university is called to do according to John Paul II. Next, We should be helping advance professional and ethical connections with where students are headed. We should be hiring people who can help us advance that vision. We should be offering pastoral ministry, opportunities for people to grow through faith formation programs and through Catholic thought and practices, like this lecture. So, advancing ways in which teachers can pass on the ideas. We should be in a cultural dialogue with the culture. That's our mission. That's what we should be doing. How we do that here in San Antonio is very different than the Philippines. I would suggest it's very different than how we do it in the black community at one of our schools in Washington, D.C. How we advance that is different. We should be engaged in a dialogue with the culture, and particularly with interfaith and ecumenical concerns. Tell you a story. I'm in Rome. I'm sitting in one of the Curia offices with one of the cardinals, and I have 15 university presidents and provosts with me from Catholic universities, and one of the cardinals Archbishop gave a talk. At the end of the talk, one of our presidents put his hand up and he said, excuse me, Archbishop, I want to make sure I heard what you said, because I think if I said what you said at my home university, they would say we're not a Catholic university. And I just want to make sure I heard you correctly, since you're in the Curia and I'm here. You said Catholic universities should engage the Muslim community by having dialogue about Muslim faith and Catholic faith, and we should hire Muslim professors for our campus, and we should welcome Muslim students to go to school on our campuses so that we can have an authentic dialogue about interfaith issues. And the Archbishop looked at the president, and he went just like this. If not us, who? If not the Catholic community, who? If we can't have that dialogue, who in the world can? We are called to be engaged in that issue and to learn what we can about Islam and to make friends and join with Muslims to advance the common good. The university professor said, I'm glad I heard that from here because I'm not sure they're going to understand that back home. So what you think Catholic might mean and where our church and the Holy Spirit is working right now may not be lined up. So it's important to continue to read and learn as you go forward, because John Paul II says our mission is to engage that real cultural reality that's taking place right now in the world. We should learn how to have a robust conversation. Right now, I happen to feel, and this is a pretty strong statement, but I'm going to say it, I happen to think right now we are short on courage in the Catholic Church. I think we're short on courage with our university presidents, and I think we're short on courage with our bishops. We're short on it. And we're really short on robust conversation among students and faculty. Because the majority of you, as soon as there's a little conflict, this is your answer. Oh yeah, I get it. Well, that's good if you believe that. I believe something different. That's cool. It's all good. And we move on. What if you could stay in that conversation a little more and say something like this? Well, now, I don't know if I really believe that position, but let me hear a little more about it from you. Let me put it together with mine for a minute. Would the person who said the statement feel more valued that way? And then let's say you're in 3-4 minutes and you like something they say. What if you were to say to them, I really like that point and I hadn't thought about that? Knowing full well that the other 3 points they made, you think are completely out to lunch. You don't buy them at all. But you don't start there. But then you start slowly and say, now on that point, I have a little different opinion. I'm thinking this. What do you think about that? What if you had a real conversation? Now, here's what's sad. That's okay for an 18 to 22-year-old, but that's happening in faculty lounges where people are going, oh yeah, that's what I think, okay, cool, that's enough. That's good, you're there, I'm here, good. I don't want to have that deep conversation because we don't do faith and politics. Or worse, just turn the television on and listen to the sort of acidic language that's used to ridicule the other position, which is worse than going the silent route. So I'll affirm the silence if all you can do is get acid-like. Our Catholic universities need to be a place where robust conversation can happen in depth. It's essential for the culture and for the good of humanity. Wasn't my idea, it's John Paul's. I just happen to be a messenger at the moment. I happen to think it's a good point. Evangelize. We exist to spread the good news of the gospel. And that good news is as clear as Jesus standing on a hillside talking. I mean, I don't know what you picture about Jesus. They didn't hand out tickets. You know, hey, Jesus is speaking here. You know, we're going to be on this mountain today. I have first 1,000 people that come get, first 100 get T-shirts, the other 900 get good friends. You know, they weren't doing that, okay? Jesus started talking on the side of a hill, and people were walking on the path. And if he had something worthwhile to say, they stopped. And if he wasn't all that great, what did they do? They just kept walking, okay? And on a good day, they went out and had a picnic because they heard he was really good that day, okay? But everybody didn't stay and listen. So what's the point? Does the church have wisdom to share with society today? And can they say it in a robust, clear way so people really want to listen? I think we do have some good news. I think we have something worthwhile to say. We, as a Catholic community, are one of the most generous, service-oriented religious groups in the world. Thank you for your tax dollars, because most of them go to the Catholic Church. The federal government gives us most of the federal dollars to help the poor, the disenfranchised in this world. We win most of the contracts from any other religious group in this country. That's the Catholic community making a difference where it counts, okay? We have something to be very proud of. We take very seriously the issue of the Good Samaritan. It's in our blood. It's just what we do. And so it's easy for us to join with people of goodwill because we believe those things and it's who we are. That's part of the gospel message because Jesus did that. That's what he was about. So we want to copy that and do that. So we want to make identity and mission visible on the campus. When you look around, you ought to know you're at a Catholic college. And we are aware that we should provide justice programs as we go forward. And here's why. Why do we have these basic dimensions of identity and mission? In John Paul II's words, because Catholic universities hold a vitally important role. Do they hold a vitally important role for the church? They have a vitally important role for Catholics? They have a vitally important role for young adults? No. They have a vitally important role for what? The future of humanity. A vitally important. Now, if we're not having robust conversations, if we're not doing terrific research to figure out what the next cure is, if we're not doing great analysis of the liberal arts, if we're not helping people advance the common good, then we're not accomplishing what Catholic universities are about. Because we want to be about the future of humanity. That's what we are. And when you look at every single tool the church has, think of every tool, parishes, grade schools, hospitals, social service centers. What does John Paul II say about Catholic universities? We're one of the best tools. We, Catholic universities, are one of the best tools the entire Catholic Church has for the world. We're pretty important. That's what that's about. Okay, done part one. I covered a lot of area. I first talked about John Paul II and Benedict. I covered 4 issues of mission. I covered 4 issues of identity. Now you have 2 minutes, very close instructions. I'm going to ask you to stand. I'm going to ask you to talk to only one person. Do not get in groups of 3. You will be penalized. 2, one-on-one. You're going to say, hello, my name is Michael, or Susan, or Paul, and this is the one thing that he said that I thought was either new, interesting, or useful. And then you have 60 seconds. That's it. And then you're going to go, your turn, and the other person's going to talk. 2 minutes, you're on the clock. Up we go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Shake the person's hand next to you. Thank you very much. Glad to talk with you. All right, you tell your partner, thank you very much? You did? All right, all right. Civility, civility, robust conversation, civility, okay. So now we're going to go to part 2, and I'm going to talk a little bit about charism, and that's a Catholic word you'll learn about in a second, and you know, how the Marianists advance this Catholic higher ed notion that we just talked about. Okay? So how do you advance Catholic higher ed through a Marianist lens? That's what this next part's about. So how does a religious community like the Marianist advance how to proceed? Well, you have to start with Jesus. And the easiest thing he said was love one another as I loved you, and love your neighbor as yourself. So this is a simplistic oversight of Jesus, but it's the launch pad of how to advance. Why? Because Jesus was working with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Jewish regulations. Okay? And he looked at all of them from the 5 books of the Torah that the Sadducees advanced, and in looking through all 5 books, he then looked at the 613 rules of the Pharisees. And out of all of that, he said there's 2 that are most important. So it took a while to get through all that to sort of sort out what the centerpiece was, right? And so he advanced 2 of them. And then Christianity is based on those 5 books and those 613 precepts, but it advances it through the lens of these 2 that are built into those 5 books and those 613. That's how he moves it. Now, I'm sure you picked this up in theology class. Somewhere along the line, it's like, wow, what were they thinking? 613 rules, 5 books of the Torah? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, how you pay attention to anything. As I used to do in my theology class when I was teaching, I would bring in the book of canon law and say, okay, here it is. The Catholic Church has 3,527 regulations today. So we can't lose where we started, okay? We have to ground it there. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John grounded it there, but if you've read each gospel, you know what? Jesus looks different in every gospel. Every gospel has a different portrait of Jesus. Mark sees him as very human. Jesus actually gets angry at people in Mark. In Luke, he's caring for the poor all the time. In Matthew, he looks like Moses, this figure that is passing out the 5 rules of the Torah. And John has him go around hugging and kissing everybody, loving people to death. And he said, I'm loving everybody because my Father loved me, and I love you, and you love me, and I love them, and they love this. So you don't get that in Mark. Mark, Jesus is pretty harsh. Now, why do I bring that up? Because you got to understand that even though you're starting with love one another as the Lord loves us, that once you get into the details, they change by different people. And that's what a charism is in the Catholic Church. So how the Dominicans do something is different than the Franciscans, it's different than the Jesuits, it's different than the Sisters of Mercy, and it's different than the Marianist. So they advance that. How do you love one another in a different way? And in Catholic circles, we call that a charism. Now, what's a charism? A charism is, simply put, it's embracing Christianity and Catholicism in a unique and special way. So it's taking Jesus' basic idea and saying, you know, he said a lot of things. The four Gospels talk about a lot. Paul even had a different take. So the Marianist went, so this is our take of how we want to proceed. Okay? And that should be built into the curriculum, into how this university proceeds. So, a very important concept which I happen to like. I've heard sometimes a phrase like, I go to a Jesuit university. I'm really down with the Jesuit stuff. I don't really like that Catholic stuff. I like the Franciscan stuff, like Francis getting rid of all those goods and like hanging out, being naked and seeing Claire, and like I'm down with Francis, but that Catholic stuff, you can have it. All right, yeah. Francis and Ignatius could have never said that sentence. It's like ice cream and toppings. They go together. You got to have the ice cream with the topping. Catholic is the ice cream. Marianist, Jesuit, Franciscan is the topping. Okay? They go together. You can't have one without the other. Yes, you can have ice cream separate from toppings. I get that. Okay? It's just an expression to try. So let me pull some things apart. Christianity is a core group of beliefs. Okay? A belief system. So we believe in one God, Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. We believe in Jesus Christ. We believe in the resurrection of the dead. These are core belief systems. We believe Jesus became a person. These are core belief systems. More people than Catholic believe that. That's what the Christian belief system is. There's also a Catholic system that takes that configuration of Christian and shuffles the deck. Basically, we take some items in the cards and we move them to the top. We like certain things about this way of doing Christian. And Presbyterians take other cards and put them at the top and go, yeah, we know those other things. They're in the Christian deck. We just like these better. So they're our trump cards. And Catholicism advances Christianity in a certain way. Now, charism takes Catholicism and it says, aha, of your 10 trump cards, we like these 3 better. And they're at the top of our deck. So they're more what we like as we proceed. Now, I started with Christianity because I started with Jesus, but here's the truth of it. You can't start there because God didn't just create Christians and Catholics. He created people. So you have to start with the common good, and that is that all people are called to be engaged in the common good. There are some people who advance the common good through the lens of Christianity, and some take those two and then advance them through Catholicism, and some then advance that through a certain charism or a belief system in a religious community. That's a little bit pulled away from where we started. You got to start with Jesus, and that's how you get there. So if you look at Catholic higher ed today, this is the configuration of all the schools, and over there you'll see Society of Mary with 3. Those are the different things in the 220 that I talked to you about. There's a lot of 1, 2s, 3s that are out there that I don't have on the chart, but I'll give you a little quick number. Okay, so each of these advance them in a different way, a different hallmark, a different pedagogy as they go forward. Going to a Franciscan school should feel different than a Jesuit school, should feel different than a Sister of Mercy school, and quite frankly, should feel different than a Marianist school. But they're all universities. They're all Catholic, and then the charism comes in. So it's university, Catholic, Marianist. Okay? University first. That's the noun. Marianist charism. For those of you that haven't seen this before, this is essential to understand the deck of cards that's at the top for the Marianist. Okay? The most important card at the top is that we're people of faith, who happen to, number 2, follow Mary, who, number 3, are joined in community, who, number 4, organize that community different than the world, because we happen to think it's a pretty flat authority system. In fact, even using the word authority almost doesn't work. There is some, but it's minor. And we want to help leaders in mission. Now, if you take that and spin it out into what does then look like through characteristics of Marianist universities, you have to turn it into a Marianist system, and that's what you'd come up with. So you're forming in faith. Now, you have a new president. So the president looked at these two. I've never talked to him about this, but you'll see why I think I can say this. He then said, this is the mission of the university. Those are the Marianist characteristics. This is on your website, for those of you who are wondering. And so therefore, if we want to put together a gateway strategic plan, it ought to factor in some of those items. So he didn't just like wake up one day and go, oh yeah, I was at St. Thomas before, now I'm at St. Mary's. What do I just want to steal from St. Thomas and bring down here? And just put it in there, put it in the strategic plan. So he looked at what is the way Marianist proceeds, and he came up with some things here. Now, this is what it looks like if you put them across from one another. So you got charism, characteristics, and gateway. That's way too many details. Let's help you figure. We'll narrow a little bit. So here are the characteristics of a Marianist formation on the left. That is, we want to form people in faith, quality education, family, spirit, justice things. Now look at the strategic plan. You got formation of faith, which was his number 2 item. Quality education translates the culture of education. If you read the introduction, he talks a bit about family spirit. You look at the ethical leaders, he's picking that off justice and peace. And adapt and change goes innovation and change. And to make it all run, you know what you need? You have to be good stewards, because it ain't going to work without it. Okay? And so you want to advance a university in a Marianist way, through a Marianist lens, keeping university primary, Catholic secondary, and Marianist third. So, if Michael were to put these words together, that is, if he were to take characteristics and strategic plan and had to shorten it for you so you'd have a little way to remember this, it would look something like this. That is, this university or Marianist way of advancing is to be faith formation with cultural excellence, who lives in a community spirit with ethical leadership, adaptive innovation, and wide stewardship as they move forward. So 6 ways to advance the Marianist way to advance. And that's where I think you can make the most difference, through these things. Now, how would I spin these out? Because I've not talked to your president about any of this, because I was asked to come to say, if you look across the landscape of Catholic higher education in the United States, what are some things we might not be thinking about? So I'm trying to get a little bit out of the box, if you would, okay? With my knowledge of being a Marianist community member and understanding Catholic higher education, what can I bring together to make that work? So one, I would say, very important for this university to identify those people who are sparks and those people who are bridge builders. Because without people who create sparks and without bridge builders, you're not going anyplace. Sparks are those sort of energetic people that sometimes are annoying. They're a little prophetic. They're a little irritant. But you know they're onto something right. They might not just saying it right. They're the people that sort of spark new ways of looking. Bridge builders are the people that go, hey, you know, for us to get from here to there, we got to put this plan together. How about you and I work on this together? So you got to identify those. And then next, you have to identify student leaders to move forward on the area of faith formation. Here's an interesting fact. National study shows that for every student leader you can empower and educate, sort of within theology, campus ministry worldview, you'll get 7 to 10 more students involved in your programming, as compared to having a faculty or campus minister lead the program. So every new student leader you can spin out and let them create what they're doing by training them, you'll multiply the number of students that are engaged in your programs. Most faculty and campus ministries, theology people, they prefer to run things. So they like to give the things because they know better than anyone else. Well, of course you know better. You have a Ph.D. You have a master's degree. Or you've been doing this for 25. Of course you know better. We're not about just getting it better. We need people in. Let's start. We need to get the thing going. So to get folks engaged, train people who can roll it out. And then, most importantly, thinking out of the box, have a one-ask policy. When I was at a university, my 3rd year of being there, I said to my staff, you can only ask a faculty person to do something once for us. Students can only lead something once in a given year. So all those retreat leaders, all those faith-sharing group leaders that have been doing things forever for you, stop it. Stop it. Bad model of church. We get on a horse, we ride it till it drops, we find somebody else in the church and ride them till they drop, another person ride them till they drop, and at the end of the day, you got 5 people standing. Terrible model of building the church. Ridiculous. It's a one ask. It goes like this. What's your name? Carrie? Karen. Hi, I'm Michael. In the next 12 months, I'm only going to come this one time. I need you to be on a panel for about 10 minutes to tell us your expertise with other 2 people. It's the only time I'll come in the next 12 months. Could you help campus ministry, theology, this faculty group, just for that 10 minutes? It's going to be in about 2 months. We'll get a date that'll work for you. Could you help us? Sure. How complex is that, folks? I won't be back for 12 months. It ain't, and no one from my staff is coming, Karen, because I'm telling them they're not coming. Okay? That's how you multiply. You want to do faith formation with a lot of folks? That's how you get from here to there. Everybody at this university can help develop the common good. The ask is wrong. The ask is wrong. Second, you want cultural excellence? We got to advance the common good through the neighborhood, through this campus. We got to find ways. You want to do it in the Southwest. God bless you. That's a big piece of property, okay? Texas is big already. You're a Southwest. That's a lot of area to cover. All right, I'm hoping that this little area around the campus is going to be able to be excellent. Okay, but nevertheless, it's something you could do. But you have to look at what you have now as your strengths. You live in a Hispanic world. That's got to look different. What does excellence look like in a Hispanic world, folks? That is not a Northeast excellence. That is not a Midwest way of advancing. There's a certain affect dimension to excellence in a Hispanic culture that doesn't exist in the Washington, D.C. corridor. You can talk all you want from the head about excellence. That's not what will be happening here. What's the heart part of excellence that you're going to factor in this cultural reality you're trying to build? Because you live in the Southwest, and without that authentic Hispanic way of advancing, it's not going to work. And so it's important to move in that direction. Let's skip this. Community relationships. So how do we have right relationships? So if God's the source of all life, and each of us is part of God's family, well, God saves me, but then I respond somehow by having that kind of positive relationship in a right way with other people. Having right relationships is the grounding to a good community spirit, because if you're not built on right relationships, if it's you've got to pay me back for what I did for you, it's not going to work. We're not paying God back. We're responding out of love because God loved us first. And then secondly, the hope is to end up with individuals who are hope-filled, transformative witnesses capable of gospel-centered communities. This is what you're going for at the end of the day if you're trying to develop community spirit. This is not gathering in a circle and doing kumbaya. That's not what community spirit is about. We're talking about individuals who are hope-filled. People of hope live differently, who want to transform and be witnesses, capable of creating gospel-centered communities. That's a very mission-directed, driven reality, based on right relations. Now, if we want ethical leadership, we got to start with Mary. Now, most people who are Catholic have a background would say, you know, Mary, she's this unbelievable person of faith. Like, she said yes before Jesus even showed up. She was saying yes. So she's a person of faith. God, I pray and Mary to intercede for me. Okay, I got that. Okay, so we got big yes. Why? Second, some people would say, you know, she was probably an educator or catechist. Yeah, but it was Jesus. Like, how much do you have to teach him anyway, right? Well, that's heresy, but that's okay, because you did have to teach him because he was human, so he did have to learn, okay? But most people would sort of blow it off and go, yeah, she was sort of a catechist, I guess, if you can catechize Jesus. All right, but let's think about what I think is most important for ethical leadership. At the end of the day, who was Jesus? And what did she do? She essentially was someone who developed a leadership formator. She formed a leader in Jesus. So if you want to have ethical leadership here, why don't we use Mary as a model? How would you be an ethical, educative, transformative leader? Because that's what you're going for, because Jesus at the end of the day was about ethical transformation. That's what he was trying to do. So it really changes a lot about how you think about Mary. All of a sudden, she's not this, oh, yeah, nice little holy faith person who said, oh, yes, Jesus, anything you want, God, whatever you're asking, like, I'm cool. Do it. No. She was creating, she was developing a transformative leader. Up there. Now, ethical leadership is happening around this country at most colleges and a graduate school level. So if you want this as a goal, how are you going to be distinctive? If you look, Luminous studies showed that in 2008, 50% of graduates were engaged in ethical leadership in graduate school, and in 3 years it jumped to 75%. That's how much ethical leadership courses got added at a national level. So I'm all cool with you folks going after ethical leadership. I think it's essential for a Catholic university, but how are you going to be distinctive? You got to get the Luminous study, you got to figure out how are we any different? What Marian characteristics develop us as we go forward? And lastly, how are you going to do added adaptive innovation? You know, I would say, as far as I know, I have not seen one Catholic university in this country yet figure out how to have faith-filled, civility-oriented courses online. There's some theology classes online, but I don't know of any faith-filled, civility-oriented classes that produce graduates. That's pretty innovative, because if you can get there, you're going to set yourself apart from anybody in the country. Secondly, you have a rich history. You have a bunch of universities, you have 3, and you have a place in Rome. I happened to take this picture when I was in Rome at your general headquarters of the Marianist Society of Mary in Rome. So you have a world network. You have folks in Africa, you got people all over. So students, why don't you go visit those places? Those are great connections. Do social work there, social service work. Put your classes together in opportunities in those venues. To stretch yourself out on innovation. Get out of your comfort zone here, because your world will open up in ways you never pictured. And lastly, wise steward. A phrase in the Marianist is, no Marianist path is trod alone. You know, we got to figure out what to do on Monday. You know, Catholics, you get what you're supposed to do on Sunday, right, if you're Catholic? But, you know, we got to figure out technically what are we supposed to be doing on Monday. And one of the things is no money, no mission. No money, no mission. So you got to have wise stewards. Got to figure out how to use your dollars in a good way. And you got to find partners who want to do that. And where do you get your partners? Best place to get your partners is find your passion. Who has passion about something that's graduated from me? Like, I hope you're getting some of my passion right now. I graduated from here, I got some passion. Don't have a lot of money, but I got passion. But I contribute, I help some, even a little, okay? Frederick Buechner said, one's deep passion meets the hungers of the world. That's where we want to find vocation. That's where we can find dollars and be good stewards. When we find where someone's passion is, they want to do something for the university, even if they can't give money. If they can give money, it's usually connected to their passion. So, sorry folks, I went a couple minutes over, but I did my best. 1 question, 2 questions. How'd you like what I said? Anything?